Good morning. Dr. May, welcome to Richland College. We are delighted that you are with us today as we host the first in your series of Joe Talks. Dr. May was selected as the 7th Chancellor of the Dallas County Community College District in February of 2014. Throughout his career, Dr. May has expanded opportunities for students who want to pursue a bachelor's degree by starting at a community college. At the same time, he brings a strong commitment to improving the Dallas economy by helping to grow middle-class jobs. He is known both nationally and internationally as a result of his relentless advocacy for the role of community colleges in solving today's most challenging social issues, including serving as the founding president of Rebuilding America's Middle Class, a national consortium of community colleges that is dedicated to ensuring that everyone has the opportunity to pursue the American dream. Dr. May's approach to leading community colleges is through the creation of public-private partnerships as a way to jumpstart new economic investment and job creation. As a community college leader and educator, he strongly believes in achieving academic excellence and has worked closely with public schools, sponsored charter schools, career academies, and early college programs. Dr. May started his higher education career as an adjunct faculty at Cedar Valley College, right here in the Dallas County Community College District. He served as president of Pueblo Community College and also served in leadership roles at Sul Ross State University in Alpine, Texas, Navarro College in Corsicana, Texas, and Vernon College in Vernon, Texas. As the system president of the Colorado Community College System, he provided leadership for 13 colleges that enrolled 116,000 students. Prior to his appointment as our DCCD Chancellor, Dr. May served for 7 years as president of the Louisiana Community and Technical College System, where under his leadership, enrollment increased from 71,000 to more than 160,000 students. A native of East Texas, Dr. May earned his doctorate in education from Texas A&M Commerce. He also holds Master of Education and Bachelor of Science degrees from Stephen F. Austin State University in Nacogdoches, Texas. Both of his children were born in Texas, and he now has a daughter, son-in-law, and 3 grandchildren who live in Garland, Texas. Let's give a warm welcome to Dr. May.
Thanks, Kay. Thank you so much. It's great to be at Richland College. Thank you. Great to see all of you today. It really has been an exciting few months for me as I've had the opportunity to travel throughout the district, spend time on our campuses, get to know our faculty, staff, and students. And one of the things that I've noticed as I drive around the district, that certainly we live in a community today that is prospering. And one of the things as I talk to folks that I want to talk with you about today, it seems like a lot of people today throughout our district and throughout our communities are really doing well. So it begs the question, what are the problems that we face, that individuals face, that employers face, and why are community colleges more essential today than any time in my career, and certainly I think any time in the history of community colleges? And the reality is things are good. When I read the headlines, I see that things about the growth of jobs in Texas, the growth of jobs in Dallas, hiring exploding. As I drive around I literally see banners hanging off of buildings and billboards advertising the need for individuals with skills to help businesses be successful. And we've seen, in fact, a tremendous growth cranes on the horizons, buildings going up everywhere. Last year, Dallas had the fourth largest growth in jobs in the nation, with over 100,000 jobs. This year, we're on pace to be number 3 in the nation, with roughly 126,000 new jobs being created throughout the district. And that would really speak to the impact that the economy is having on individuals, on businesses. And normally, when we see this happen, everybody grows. Everyone prospers as a result. So what's the problem? There's a whole other set of headlines that we're seeing in the paper today, and that we're observing on television. And that's that not everyone is participating in the economy. Not everyone is benefiting from the boom. There are people, in fact, being left behind. And we see headlines where the mayor has created a poverty task force, that this is such an important issue, that many of our organizations have come together and rallied around what can we do to help this. In fact, the Dallas Morning News had a whole insert and section just talking about what's occurring with poverty, and how 40% of our population as adults are on the brink right now, on the brink of entering poverty, or already in poverty at any one time. They're essentially one crisis, one illness, one automobile wreck, one loss of job away from poverty. When we talk about poverty, we're not talking about a middle-class wage, which is usually $31,000 to $35,000, $36,000. We're talking about, for a family of 4, $20,050 is the income that we're looking at. I want to show you something that really is even more surprising. Tremendous growth. We look at the state of Texas, 1,000 people a day moving into the state. The economy's on the rise. We're a big part of that growth here in North Dallas and in the North Texas area. And over the last few years, in fact, throughout this region, we've seen a 41% growth in population. 41%. 5% growth, but what we've seen is a 41% growth in poverty over that same period of time. And it really doesn't make sense, does it? Because normally what happens when jobs are created, people get those jobs and they go out of poverty. But what we're seeing is jobs are being created, people are actually falling into poverty at a faster rate than the jobs are being created, meaning that they're losing middle-class jobs and falling into poverty. That's what's happening throughout the region. So it really is kind of everyone's problem. On the other hand, everyone is going to be wants to participate in the growth and the success. But if everyone is not, then we all pay a price for it in terms of infrastructure, our school systems, our various social organizations. And I think it's particularly a challenge for community colleges as we look at the needs. The map up here that I'm showing you is from 1980. Each dot represents in 1980 where 20 people lived who in poverty throughout the district. And I think this is probably no surprise to most of you that most of the poverty was in South Dallas, right? That's kind of what we've seen. Let's fast forward to 2010 and look what's happened to poverty throughout the region. The demographics have changed. We've seen who's falling into poverty change, and we've seen it become a part of virtually every community, every region that we serve throughout the district. Does that surprise you? That where we live and are here right now today has poverty surrounding us in large numbers and large pockets of it. In fact, when we look at where our colleges are located and our campuses are located, we see that in fact we're located not only in the southern part of the district, but throughout the district in areas where we're seeing poverty and needs that need to be met. Then let's look at what's happening to job growth, because it is going everywhere, but it's basically a northern phenomenon, with, again, each of these representing about 20 new jobs being created, where the opportunities lie throughout the region. And so as we look at clearly what's happening with those in poverty are not aligning very well with where the opportunities are today. You know, a few years back, a gentleman by the name of Jim Clifton. Jim Clifton is the president, CEO of the Gallup organization that does polling on just about everything. Well, he decided to undertake the greatest challenge for the organization that they had ever set out to get a real look at what was occurring throughout the world, and they did a global poll, a global survey to really find out what people cared about, what they wanted, what was on their mind, about their goals or dreams, their aspirations. And he came back, and what he found was surprising to him and to the organization, that determined that what the whole world wants is a job, that's the number one issue. In fact, the title of his book is The Coming Job War, believing that, as he points out, that has become the real division between classes, between countries, between cities, between states. And we see it here in the United States, where in fact great effort is doing to attract jobs to cities, to regions, others, that they're realizing that without that job growth, communities, cities cannot be successful. And we've got great examples where communities have lost jobs throughout this nation, and we've seen what happens to those cities as a result of it. So here's the challenge, here's the conundrum as we look at what's occurring in our areas. We've seen job growth and growth in poverty at the same time, with people losing their job, and these folks don't want to be out of work. They desperately want to work. They desperately want a job, but they can't get jobs. And on the other hand, we find employers are absolutely screaming that they can't find people with the knowledge, the skills, the ability, the certificates, the awards, the degrees that they need in order to be successful in growing their business and meeting the needs of their customers. And so how can we be at a time when we've got so many people out of work that want jobs, so many companies that can't find the workers that they need, and how do we bring those two together today? Because it's clear that the gap is not only further apart than it's ever been, that it's actually widening as we talk, so that workers remain unemployed and employers remain without the skilled workforce they need in order to be successful. And it really gets down to the middle class challenge. You know, one of the things that I've seen in my life, and some of you can probably relate to this, you know, when I graduated from high school, I had a mother that had encouraged me throughout my life to go to college, but I didn't realize till later it wasn't because I was going to college to get a job in those days. It was to have a better life. Because in fact, jobs were plentiful. My friends, most of my friends that I went to high school with went right to work. They didn't go to college, and they thought I was a little bit silly. Why would, when I would forgo a good salary, a good income, the ability to buy a car, home, all the things that we need to go off to college, where I may not earn any more money than they were going to earn as a result of that. But then you fast forward, and you look at what's happened now, and the truth is, there are virtually no jobs in the growth sectors that don't require some education beyond high school. In fact, 63% of all jobs, and depending on what part of the region you're in, it's up to 75%. The numbers have almost reversed, requiring some education beyond high school, often less than a bachelor's degree, but certainly more than a high school diploma. You know, when I can remember almost throughout my life, folks making the statement, college is not for everyone. Have you ever heard anyone say that? I may have even said it at some point. You may have said it. The truth is, that may have been true in 1970. It is absolutely not true today. Today, everyone is better off in college than not in college. Some college really is for everyone. In fact, it's essential for everyone, and that really is the challenge that we have, I think, as colleges and districts, of how we reach people that we haven't brought through our doors in the past and serve them in order that they can get the opportunities that they need. And it's not just some college, and it's not just going to college. It's actually the choices that they make also matter a great deal if they're going to align with the needs of the economy and what's there. And it surprises people today to know that 43% of workers with just a certificate or a license out-earn individuals with an associate degree. In fact, 27% of individuals with a certificate or a license out-earn bachelor's degrees in today's economy. And 31% of individuals with an associate's degree out-earn bachelor's degree. In fact, what we're finding in many states today is that because of a simple economic fact of supply and demand, that there's such a shortage of skilled people in many areas. In most states looked at today, associate degrees will out-earn baccalaureate degrees within 18 months to 2 years after graduation from high school, from college. And what are the fast-growing areas? Well, we're going to continue to see, and I should point out, the fastest-growing demand are for baccalaureate degrees. We've got to continue getting people through the pipeline. But when you look at what's occurring in our area, it's not even. Not every area is the same, and the growth opportunities are not the same for every area. And frankly, we can look at this word cloud today, which emphasizes the growth areas, and we look at it again in 3 months, we're going to see differences because the economy is dynamic. It's changing all the time around us. And that means we've got to be more responsive, nimble, and change faster than we ever have. But to get those jobs, virtually every one of them require coming through the door of Richland College and the colleges throughout the Dallas County Community College District. There is no other way to get there. That the opportunity for a middle-class job and a middle-class lifestyle are increasingly through the doors of our community colleges, meaning that we are more essential. We've always been important, but today we're absolutely essential for individuals, for employers, for neighborhoods, and for communities that we serve. So we've been working with our board and working with our college leadership to identify a set of priorities that hopefully will allow us to continue to grow and meet the needs and really to do what most of you and what I signed on for, and that's to help build a better life for individuals and grow strong neighborhoods and communities. So what we really have to do is get a better understanding of the educational problems that individuals are facing and what their needs are so that we know not only the individual needs, the needs of employers, the needs of communities, and can really focus our energy in that direction. And we talk a lot about student success, and we do have to have people complete and get the certificates or degrees, but if we don't bring them in the doors first, they'll never have that opportunity. And there are many people being completely left behind. I sometimes call them the non-consumers of higher education. They don't see us as a way of solving their problems, and we've got to communicate in such a way that makes that possible. We have to eliminate the barriers, not just financial, not just geographical barriers, but some of the social barriers, some of the historical barriers, our own processes that get in the way that make it difficult for individuals to be successful and to come through our doors and to complete. Dual enrollment is a great pipeline, and right now we have about 10,000 students throughout the district enrolled in dual enrollment. We have to grow that number because if a student earns credit in college while they're still in high school, they're 84% more likely to continue on with a post-secondary education and earn a credential. We have to look at our pre-K challenge. Now, why is that our problem? Well, here's the reality. It starts in pre-K. Right now, there are 37,000 children in Dallas County who do not have access to early childhood education for one reason. We're 1,900 teachers short of what the needs are in order to meet that. And if we don't own that problem, who will? Who can create the wide door to bring people in to address that need? We also have to look at that, realizing that many individuals aren't prepared for some of our associate degree programs and others. So we have to look at more short-term certificates, which I can tell you we are already. And it's one of the fastest growing areas throughout the district of people coming in and earning these certificates and being able to go right to work. But I think we have to accelerate that. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to bring everyone up to the salary and the income and support the needs of the employers like we intend. And we can't do it by ourselves. We have to partner in a very different way with employers. We've always used advisory councils to help with our technical and career education programs, but we have to expand that even more now so that we're engaging on a more basic level of talking about what are the skills gaps, what are your challenges with employers, understanding the business model. And then more importantly, I think than anything else, we really have to guarantee that transfer. You may have seen today, and this week, a recent study was released pointing out that the average transfer student nationwide loses 13 hours on transfer. We think it's 21 to 24 in this area, and we have to make that seamless and perfect for every student. It makes it too expensive, and it's a barrier, unnecessary barrier, and frankly shouldn't even be allowed to transfer into a university without accepting the credit. So as we look at where we are today, we're seeing more and more community colleges being talked about nationally and locally as a solution for individuals, for employers, for communities. And I think the most telling headline that I've seen is the one here that asked the question in Time magazine some time back, can community colleges save the U.S. economy? I just pondered that headline. Why would that question be asked? Well, the reality is, it's an understanding that not only, I think, is America really discovering, but it's part of the role of community colleges to make sure that we have the programs that allow individuals to leave here and to be successful and achieve their dreams, that companies can find the individuals they need to be successful, and that our communities can grow and prosper. So as we look at this map, you know, I look at this every day as the great challenge that we face of poverty throughout the region. I think that, I guess I'm an optimist and somewhat of an idealist. You know, it's my goal that we see that wiped out and that we replace that with jobs throughout the district, that everyone can be a part of the economy and everyone can play a role in meeting their needs, their families' needs, and we all benefit. Thank you very much for letting me spend some time with you today and talk to you about some of these issues. Thank you. I've got some time to open it up for questions. If you have some, I'd be glad to respond. Anything on your mind? Yes,
I'm wondering from a student perspective, what's the district's greatest challenge or challenges?
I really think that one of the great challenges is, and some of those, when we did that word cloud with some of the career areas and opportunities, one of the things I've been talking to our presidents and leadership about is, unfortunately, many of those we've actually capped enrollment in, where we're seeing growth. And healthcare is a great example. We've not always aligned our resources in a way that align with what some of the needs are in the community, and not just we think of healthcare, but it's really a lot of other areas as well where we see it. Early childhood is a great example where we have a waiting list right now where we offer the early childhood programs for people to get into the program, and yet there's a huge shortage that's out there. So our challenge is to really engage all of us, knowing that everything we're doing is important and we can't stop what we're doing, but how do we also at the same time realize that we have to be a little bit more nimble and a little bit more responsive where we see real challenges in our community. And early childhood is a great example of that, because if we don't get it right then, we basically, in many cases, have set the stage so that individual will never really be successful in their educational and career pursuits. So it's important. But healthcare, we know right now that for the last 5 years, Parkland Hospital has been short 200 nurses a year, every year, that they've not been able to fill. Well, that's a major health issue for our community. So as we look at how we begin to own this, we have to think about how we prioritize and make some of our decisions in a little bit different way. And I think that's hard because we've always really looked at that high school pipeline as the primary pipeline in, but today we're seeing individuals who didn't complete high school need some of the same opportunities that a high school graduate has. And I think that's going to be a little bit of an overall challenge for us to meet that need. Yes,
eliminate barriers, encourage access. Do you have an opinion on the district policy of cutting off registration several days before classes begin? In that it would seem to me that is an elimination of access for those who perhaps are the most needy and have the hardest trouble in registering and paying early.
I really do think, and let me just say, I really respect the decision-making process of our folks as we've looked to try to incorporate practices that we know will lead to success. I mean, we all know that students that get a late start are going to struggle. But the truth of the matter is, and let me just give you my, I guess my personal plea to everyone on this issue. I have talked to a lot of people in my career, and who wanted to come through our doors, but because of a little rule or of a timing issue or something that we intended to be helpful, ended up tripping them up. And it's not like that a lot of the particularly non-consumers, as I call them, will persist, and they don't have that determination and drive just to keep pounding against it until they finally work their way through the process and get where they want. They get tripped up just over the slightest little thing, and we've lost them forever, and they've lost the opportunity to build a future forever. And I tell you, I take that personal, that when we see that. So it has to be the right balance of what we're doing to help ensure success, but making sure that we don't, it's the unintended consequences. We're all trying to do the right thing, but at the end of the day, not really understanding from the point of view of some of the people we serve what gets in the way. And how we relate. It's not related to the question, but I'll share. Something occurred to me, and this I'm sure for many of you, this is not new information or new insight, but it was for me. I being back in the Dallas area, the president of Texas A&M Commerce invited me to come down to the campus for an evening event, and having the opportunity to go back to the campus, I invited one of my former faculty members to come and join me at the table and spend some time with me. I'd worked for her. She had been the vice president of the university and had also been on the faculty, and I'd had courses from her. So, and we hadn't communicated in years, so it was great to reconnect and do that. And a gentleman was getting an award that night who happened to be the first CEO of Verizon Wireless, and obviously successful. He's gone on to own about 6 or 7 restaurants here in the Dallas area, businessman, entrepreneur. But he got up and said something very interesting. He said, I got to tell you, I appreciate the award from the university because it's the first time in my life I've ever woken up one morning and not been afraid that you were going to find me out and come and take the degree from me. And figure out that I really never deserved it, and I never felt like I deserved it. To which the faculty member, sitting beside me, very successful, turned and said, I always felt the same way. And so I started asking students about how they feel as I get there. And our students from Richland College have come up to me and said, I feel like I'm an imposter. I don't feel like I belong here. I think I'm going to be found out at some point. So, back to the issue. I think that a lot of the students we're bringing in the door need us. They have to go through our programs, but I don't think yet we've always been able to relate to how they really feel about themselves and what they think about education institutions, and in fact are here basically, as they tell me, feeling like they absolutely don't belong. And I think until we can really bridge that gap, we're going to continue to see students not be successful. Yes,
of capturing all the good work we do here with students who transfer, who don't necessarily get the certificate or degree here. But we do a lot of training and education here. How can we be recognized for that credit?
Well, and great question. I think there's a couple of things as I think about transfer. That is so critical and so important. And I'll tell you one of the things that we're going to be implementing here throughout the district. I'm right now kind of working with our folks on it. Is we don't get good feedback from most receiving institutions as to what happens to our students. We know that when we look at the data with institutions that will cooperate with us in other community colleges, and occasionally we can get a lot of this from the National Student Clearinghouse, but the students who earn an associate degree, transfer to a university, will graduate faster and with a higher GPA than native students, and we know that. What we don't know well is what happens to other people. Now, we're working right now. I've asked our folks to look at creating a web page whereby we rate receiving institutions in terms of, do they provide us feedback? If they do, we'll give them 5 stars and some other things. If they don't, we're going to mark them down, because we don't have the ability to tell our students what to expect to get there. Are they accepting our credit and degrees in total, or are they going through it and slashing it up in such a way that students end up taking additional hours that are unnecessary along the way? So I want to look at how we can really rate that. And I think as we do, we're going to get information about what happens to students, their success. I recently told the chair of a university board here in the area that we were doing this, and his head immediately popped up and said, well, I can tell you that's going to affect how we look at transfer and what we talk about in the future. So we're going to be looking at that, and I think that's an absolutely critical area, because it's got to be smoother, seamless, and students, even when we have great agreements, you wouldn't think this would happen, but what happens when students go to many of our universities, they're told, now you don't have to retake this course, but I'm going to encourage you. And what they're in a position where you've got a person in authority advising them to do something, and they end up taking an unnecessary course, expensive for them, expensive for the state, and completely unnecessary.
Dr. May, good morning. Thank you so much for making time to be here at Richland College.
Great to be here.
As we're talking about access and success, we're all aware of Texas Momentum Funding. Okay. And right now, in the state of Texas, 10% of our funding is based on milestones in student success.
Right.
We also know that states such as Tennessee and Ohio have gone completely 100% based on completion. What is your sense in the work that you and Justin are doing with the legislature and the direction that the state of Texas is moving toward?
Yeah, I think that we all know it's a little bit common sense. What gets measured gets focused on, right? I mean, we end up paying attention to it, and we do that in our classes, and we do that in organizations, and I do think it's important that we do pay attention to what really matters, and people completing certificates, degrees are absolutely, I think that's important, but in a lot of ways that's still a means to an end, and I don't think we have it perfect yet for everyone, because if you just completing our degree and then transferring, if the student's not successful, were we really successful in that process? If they complete the degree and they can't get a job, are we really successful in terms of meeting the needs? So I think it's probably partially right, and we're never going to get to a perfect looking at the performance, but I think we have to pay attention to it. And I talk about this all the time. I think if you only look at the back end of that and you're not looking at what you're doing on the front end at the same time, it's not going to come out right. Here we are, we're looking right now, and as part of the momentum points, in areas like what happens in developmental education and our completion, but we've never gone back and re-examined the funding model for what we're doing, and the funding model is exactly the same as it was before. And the truth is, it doesn't matter what kind of organization or who you are, you can't work against the money long term. And the money still pushes us to grow in numbers, to do things as cheaply as we possibly can. It doesn't align very well with the cost of our programs, so we end up capping enrollment in high-cost programs because the dollars don't correspond with that at the end of the day. And we elevate enrollment perhaps sometimes in areas where there are really not as many opportunities, but because it's cheaper and easier and more efficient to do. And so to only look at what's coming out the outputs of the process without re-examining how we bring and use our resources to drive what we want to see happening it's never going to be successful in the long run, and we'll continue to have to work around, and it will require outstanding dedicated leadership at colleges and faculty and staff and others who are committed to working against it. In an ideal world, our resources would align with the results, and that's kind of the intent of performance funding. But the truth is, even with the 10% we're talking about, it really still doesn't do that very, very well. It encourages a certain type of behavior, but it doesn't align with what we need to see happening in our classrooms, in our programs, and on our campuses. Yes.
Dr. May, let me apologize right up front. I'm going to hold your feet to the fire on something. Ray Canham just asked you a question a moment ago about we're stopping enrollment this evening at whatever time we shut off, and we're not going to enroll tomorrow or Friday or Saturday, and classes begin on Monday. Why can't we change that and go back to the way we've always done it before, that we end up enrollment on Saturday evening or whatever time it is and start classes on Monday? We're going to miss a real opportunity with students.
Well, and I appreciate the question. I really don't know all the details of that, or I would have answered and already addressed it. So I'm going to look into that more. But thanks and appreciate that. Good to see you again too.
Dr. May, I have a question about the fact that we have several employees in the district who are actually in poverty themselves, or as you mentioned, a crisis away from it. And I was wondering what your plans were to address that.
Yeah, and very concerned about all of our folks that are here. One of the things that we did this year, it was started, so I can't take credit for it, prior to my arrival, was employ a firm, Fox Lawson, to go in and really take a look at what's occurring throughout the district with wages, salaries, positions, and what we found was there's just a lot of misalignment. We found that in many areas, people substantially underpaid when compared to market. While in some areas it was fine, but truthfully, the gaps seem to be more pervasive than I would certainly have expected or would like to see. With average in some classifications of people being 20% or more below what market should be. So we've been meeting with the board on the issue. We're recommending investing substantially this year in salary increases and doing that over the next 3 years in order to bring that up. But we'll be doing it in twofold. I'm going to ask for somebody's head. Is that information? I know it's available through the board website of what the recommendations are. But if we could make that out there so that everyone could take a look at it. Essentially, everyone will get a minimum, no matter where you are in the organization, of a 2.5% increase. That'll be the lowest amount, with some individuals this year going up 11%, depending on where you are in distance from the ranges. We're going to be doing two things, and across the board, and adjusting the ranges at the same time, so that. And I apologize, I don't remember the exact percentages on that, but on average, everyone will do better than the 2.5% across the board, with some classifications doing 4, 5, or more on average. But that doesn't mean that each individual will be there. Then we have a plan then to continue that next year, because the group, frankly, the amount of dollars it's going to take was about $4 million more than we budgeted initially for that purpose. So we've gone back, we found the $4 million to put in there, and I'm committed to making that happen, and really holding our board and others accountable for it. Which brings up a point here. We're right now. Last night we had our is that. Did I get that before I kind of shift? I want to talk about our tax rate and tuition. Last night we held a first of 2 tax hearings. The next one is going to be on the 26th, which will be down in the boardroom at 1601 Lamar. And what we're asking for is to hold the tax rate the same. That, in fact, will bring in about an additional $10 million, which pretty well correlates with what we're talking about on the salary increase this year. And without having to raise it, the average taxpayer will pay about $8.49 additional per year. As a result of that, which would generate about $10 million for us to be able to make some of those adjustments. That will still leave us, I believe, 37th in terms of tax rate of the 50 community colleges in the state. We're also asking for a $7 increase in tuition, taking it from 52 to 59 effective January 1. Of this year. Right now, we're 49th out of 50 in terms of tuition rate. Certainly, our folks to the north are the least expensive, which creates a little bit of competition for us. But one of the things in looking at, if we're going to kind of put our money where our mouth is, and if we're going to take the cap off of some of these programs where we've limited enrollment because we really haven't had the resources to fund that, what we're looking at doing is taking the tuition dollars. I mean, we can be affordable and we can be cheap. And if there's no seat for what you want to enroll in and learn, then of what real value is it of being low cost? So we are asking to increase that, knowing that in fact that some individuals that will be a hardship, and we'll work with them to accommodate that. But on the other hand, it will allow us to expand and open up new opportunities, and that's kind of what we've talked about with the presidents or others, is that we take those dollars and we create new pathways and new opportunities so that we make sure that everybody can find a place throughout the Dallas County Community College District where they can go and get the knowledge, skills, and ability that they'll need in order to be successful. So little plug for that. And next Tuesday will be the next hearing on this very important topic that you may not think it affects you. You may think it just affects you as a taxpayer, but it really also affects us as district employees. Yes.
How do we as a district take those that have been in poverty for multiple generations and new to poverty and educate them and convince them that we are their path out of poverty?
Yeah, and it's a great question, and we actually do it every year. Every year at graduation, I will talk with people that have walked across the stage and are more than willing to share their stories with us. And the stories are are really the same. I mean, there's for them, there comes a point of desperation where I recall talking to a woman at commencement once, and in tears as she's talking about on food stamps, struggling. As she gave her story, multi-generation, in terms of the impact of that. Had 3 children, and she described her living conditions to me, which weren't very appealing or flattering as she made the description, and just finally came to the point and said, "I hate my life. I hate everything," as she describes it to me, and found the courage in a way to come over, literally in her case, across the street to a college to meet that need. So I think that the truth is, we don't do a good job of reaching into many people who don't see us as an option. And unfortunately, for-profits are doing a little bit better job of reaching that population. And they don't do a service to the individuals. They don't do a service to the community. Individuals end up in debt, and unfortunately, often without the skills that they need. I do think that we've got to look at our communication strategy a little bit differently in the future, because the reality is, when we talk about, and we're proud of this, that our students can start here and become surgeons. They can start here and have be bankers and very successful. That's not the vision a non-consumer sees. That's not what they see. And if we can't give them a vision and a pathway that's real to them in terms that they understand, that just looks like something for somebody else, and the for-profits are talking my language, and I'm going to come through their door instead. So we've got to do that. Yes.
Dr. May, stepping off on what you're talking about right now, there's some research out there that says 9 out of the top 10 reasons that students don't complete their educational goals comes from a more personal matter. Something in their personal life gets in the way. Then you talk about feelings that they don't feel like they quite fit in, or that they'll be discovered. And I think we've all had those feelings at some point. Each one of our campuses has college counseling services of some sort. Some are wide, like Richland has the largest. Some, like Mountain View, only has 1 counselor. But each campus has a different set of counselors. We all know that personal skills, personal feelings, personal abilities is what students need to know that they can access in a developmental way. What is your viewpoint on the importance and the role of personal counseling, of eliminating these goals and building our students the more skill set so that they have the subject educational goals?
Yeah, and I don't think you could hear the question, everyone, but the question was, what are my thoughts on both personal counseling and helping individuals overcome barriers? Because the truth is, in many cases, life gets in the way more than academic issues. Is that a safe way of saying it? And I've observed, and all of us observed the same thing. I mean, it's so doggone frustrating when you see a person with ability and who can be successful, just can't figure out how to get over those very real life obstacles that get in the way. And sometimes for us, it looks so tiny. A car that broke down, a sick child, and it can be downright tragic to abusive situations and other things that are out there. And where do you get the help to deal with that? I'm going to be introducing something I've talked to the presidents about. I've been talking to area foundations about that. I'm going to ask you to go and look at a website on this. There's an organization called Single Stop USA, 2 words, Single Stop USA. They're out of Harlem. They were initially started by the Robin Hood Foundation, spun off a few years ago as their own separate entity that works with community colleges. and they're very unique. I've worked with them in my previous roles, and so I'm very, very familiar with what they do. And what they do is help colleges kind of figure out some of this, how we can do a better job, leverage what we're already doing, leverage resources that are already available in the community to help students. So I'll give you an example. At one of our colleges in New Orleans, Delgado Community College, familiar with it, we were puzzled by the fact that we knew that we were had one of the poorest populations in the state and in the nation in certain areas, but we had a relatively low number of our students participating in Pell Grant programs. So we're scratching our head and going, what's the challenge? So we started talking to students, and we found out something. The reason they weren't is because there's a big cash economy there, and basically the students weren't filing income tax, which meant that they couldn't then file their Pell Grant. Now, the IRS basically didn't care because they were going to get a check back, as it turned out. So we began to work with Single Stop, which did training for our students and others to begin to provide tax services for that. The average student got $1,200 additional. And for these individuals, that's a lot of money. And for answering 6 more questions, they then, on average, got about a $3,400 to $3,500 Pell Grant. So now we've got a lot more money coming into the individual to meet the need. And they have a software package that also looked at that same information and told them if they were eligible for food stamps, transportation vouchers, child care vouchers, and other support that was available. We also connected them through that to free legal services that would be available for those who were dealing with landlord issues, who were dealing with child services or other things that they were abusive relationships, and helping them get through that. And that can't be an add-on, though. If we're going to look at this, it really has to be a kind of a rethinking of what we're doing from a student services and financial support point of view, and saying, okay, yes, this is not an academic problem, but it's the problem getting in the way. It's the barrier for the individual. And our real challenge is, are we willing to own and that problem and help come up with a solution? I think look at Single Stop. I think it's one of the answers. I'm talking with the foundations, the Communities Foundation of Texas, the Meadows Foundation, and others about getting us resources to help get that started initially. I intend to put some resources in to help kick that off as early as really sometime this fall. I'd like to see us start to begin to look at that. But the problem is we can't expect our students who really don't know how to navigate our system to be able to navigate some of these other systems as well. And so that's just kind of my thoughts. I feel like we need to own that. Good.
Dr. May, I teach government, and I've taught government in the district since El Centro opened. And I'm concerned that we are not doing as much as we should to recognize the diversity of our population, meaning the growing number of Hispanics, Asians, African Americans. If you look at how this state's population is changing, it's very dramatic, and yet I don't think we have enough programs for all of us who work here so that we can better help those students. What are your ideas on that?
Yeah, and I think we saw it here when you look at this map. If you look back at 1980, you noticed the color was mostly yellow. That represents African American population, yellow. Green on this map represents Hispanic population. Red represents the Asian population, and blue represents the white population, white non-Hispanic population. So you can see the dramatic. If there's one thing that besides the growth of poverty that this points out, is basically the diversity of the poverty and what's occurred at the same time, which does mirror our overall change in the population. I don't really yet have the answer. I think that's an important discussion that we've got to have as kind of a college and college family and district family of continuing to look, because these are changing, expectations are changing. The truth of the matter is we can't afford to leave anyone behind. And if we can't find a way to relate, one of the things that is a little difficult for us is we kind of expect everyone to come here, and sometimes as we've talked to some populations, boy, that's just difficult. And in many cases, I think we've got to find a way to go there. But that's a real different way of thinking and operating as we look at how to meet some of the needs. Thank you. Yes,
We have addressed issues, as it were, with our students in terms of poverty and to a certain extent our employees. I'd like to pose a question about probably one of our most key aspects, and that is our adjuncts.
Yeah.
On their very broad backs, the engine that drives a lot of our programs rests. Yet over time, over the last, say, 2 years, there's been a diminution of the amount of classes they're allowed to teach and so on. It's not even a question necessarily of how much they make, it's a question of how much they're losing each time. They then are spread out increasingly over more and more institutions and so on. How should we address that?
I think understanding probably better some of the challenges that are faced. I mean, you're right. Coming back, and as mentioned, I started out as an adjunct faculty member at Cedar Valley, and was there as a part-time counselor also to help with that. So, and for a lot of folks, for me, it worked because I kind of saw that as something I wanted to do and a little bit additional income, and that's there. And unfortunately, probably I may be part of the problem. I kind of still have that mental image a little bit, but I look at the data and I realize that for some people, this really is their job, and really is their income. And I think both we have to strike a balance between the needs of our students and flexibility and being able to provide current people coming in, and adjuncts provide frankly some just incredible instruction, particularly in fields where we have a tough time getting people with current information about the field or about the area, and at the same time be fair to them. And we're proposing a 5% increase this year in adjunct. We're looking at what's going on elsewhere throughout the region. Is that right? Is that enough? I don't know, but certainly aware that we need to provide support. So we're actually doing a little more for them than we are on average for everyone else.
Dr. May,
Hi.
we have a room full of smart and intelligent and motivated people, and I want to help. What can I do? I mean, you've listed some great, yesterday we learned that the happiest people are the ones working on an intractable problem, so I guess we're going to all be really happy. So early childhood, health professions, poverty, completion, adjuncts, how do I get involved to be productive toward these issues?
Great question, and thank you for asking the question, because what can I do? And one, I think there are a couple of things. I'm looking for you and others to help others understand the problem, because I think there's still way too many people that think that going to college means getting a 4-year degree. And there's nothing wrong with getting a 4-year degree, but if that's the only goal, then the bulk of the population, actually 89.1%, feel like it's not for them at the end of the day. So we've got to communicate in a way that lets everyone know that college is for everyone, and we can do that in our classes, we can do that in our churches, we can do that in our communities, and when we engage in people, so that this is not, I still remember, and I tie this together, Stephen F. Austin freshman walking into orientation, into a theater, frankly, much larger than this. I was a tiny little spot in the room. I still remember the guy in the suit who got up and was talking. His name was Clyde Iglinski, and who did the deal. Look to your left, look to your right. 2 of the 3 of you won't be here next year. You ever had that? I went through that. That was real for me. And why? Because higher education is an exclusive club that most people aren't worthy of being a part of. That's the message. That part of our role here is to exclude the unworthy, weed you out of the process, send you back to East Texas, West Texas, from wherever you came, and good luck on your future. That is not the message that we can afford to communicate anywhere, anytime, any place to anyone. What we have to find, and because too many people still believe that about us, too many people still believe that this is an exclusive club for just the few. They don't understand what's happened to the economy, what's happened, and we can go into why all this has occurred, but in some ways it's not really relevant. It's because it has occurred and it's changed, and opportunity is going to come through our door. So we've got to find a way to communicate that. And when we find something that gets in the way of that, then let's come and talk about it and figure out how we can communicate and help overcome the barrier. If we find a procedural process, whether it's timeline, let's come back and talk about how we can make that work, both for the student that quote did it the right way, as well as those that didn't understand what the right way was. It was just for them. I managed to get here somehow. Help me, and do it. And I think that's important. Also in our roles, I know you do this here, and you may be among the best at it. But I still recall another mother at graduation talking to me one year about her college experience, and just was gushing as she came up to me after graduation and talked to me about it. But she said, I got to tell you, she said, I came here the first time, I got the courage to come. I didn't even turn into the parking lot. I just circled and went home. Second time, I sat in the car in the parking lot for about 15 minutes and went home. Finally, I drove around and I avoided the building with the flagpoles at it, and I drove around to the other side, and I walked in knowing that I was probably going in the wrong building in the wrong place at the wrong time, and started to turn around and leave when somebody called, "Can I help you?" Because of that one person calling out to help me, she tells, I went on to get an associate degree. I'm now enrolled at the university. And I want you to meet my daughter, who also graduated tonight. That's here as well. So as we look even with our own jobs, just taking the time and be aware, because I can promise you there are people walk in to this college on a regular basis that don't know where to go, who to talk to, what to do, and they're actually avoiding all the systems that we put in place to try to help them get there, and just ask that your help. Secondly, as we talk about the importance of what we're doing, we're increasingly in a climate nationally that is very divisive. I think the one thing that colleges do is we can bring everyone together toward a common purpose, and that purpose is to build a better life, to support the middle class, and to help everyone experience the American dream. That's what I want. It's what I want for my children. It's what I want for everyone. And then I would say maybe the final thing there is just to be engaged in terms of conversations on campus and be engaged in communicating that what the concerns and issues are. If we don't talk, if we can't articulate and frame the problem, we're not going to be able to articulate and frame the solutions. We're going to have to continue to do that on an ongoing basis. So thank you very much. Yes.
Dr. May, what are the things that makes Richland so unique and special for the cultural diversity and the international diversity? Over 140 countries represented at Richland, And many of those students are coming to us as non-immigrants, and so they're not really here to achieve the American dream, they're here to realize a global dream. I look at this map and my instinct is to zoom out and look at how are we interconnected with a larger global community. So I'm just wondering what steps are being taken to ensure that we're not just insular and focusing on the Dallas economy.
Yeah. Great question related to really tying to the fact that you have over 140 countries represented here at Richland College, that we are diverse in terms of enrollment, but yet what are we doing intentionally to understand global issues and there, and kind of my thoughts on that. Well, I can tell you, that's always been very, very important from my perspective, because we you know, some people will kind of react negatively to this, but the truth is we are citizens of the world, and that the economies that we're talking about today is absolutely a global economy. We can drive just in blocks around this college. And drive by companies that are on a daily basis literally touching every continent, including Antarctica in some fashion, and the people of the world, and therefore I really do think that it's incumbent. You already have some international programs and experiences. I am looking at continuing some other opportunities. It's just been a kind of an important part of me. I don't know if they're going to do it this year, Kay. They should be, but I think they've gone to every other year. The Russian Community College experience, I was part of the Fulbright program that actually went over to create that there, mainly so that we could create an ongoing regular pipeline of community college leaders and faculty being able to go and just have an experience to another country. I'm also have met as recently as 2 days ago with individuals doing a lot of work in both South America, Dominican Republic, Latin America, and some other places. Are there opportunities that we can engage with? Because I find if our faculty can really go and have even a short time opportunity in a different culture, 100% have come back to tell me it transformed them. It transformed how they saw their students, how they saw the world, and virtually 100% have also said, I learned something there that's true here. I just never could see it here until I was in a very different place, in a different culture that looked at things differently. So absolutely, that's going to be something that we're going to be talking about and looking for. More, I guess, we don't really have district-wide the organization for that, but we're going to be putting some things in place. Maybe not this year, but next year that we'll make that happen. Thank you.
Dr. May, in the past, and I want to know your direction with the district's foundation. In the past, the Chancellor was focused our foundation support or our generation of funds toward the Rising Star scholarships, and it was an endowment or whatever was done with those resources. But what is your direction? What's the strategic initiative or the growth of the foundation for the support of this district's needs to do what you want it to do, or for individual colleges and the corporation or business and industry support that we can bring to our own college, or what's your direction for it as a district to help us do all these things that we want to do?
Thank you. And it's really, the question is related to the role of the foundation, fundraising,
yes,
engagement.
the role of the foundation in hands-off for colleges, or it's because it's a district approach, or and I don't mean that.
I can promise you, our presidents are getting the message that they're not going to be hands-off, right, Kay?
I work in resource development, so that is my job, bring entertainment and that work, and we could greatly use.
Well, I'm going to split a couple of things up on the fundraising and resource development side of the house. I do think that strategically going after grants and private funding to support new and innovative initiatives are things that we need to continue to do. But we also we have pockets of this, but not an overarching strategy of how we engage in partnerships that include financial support and resources toward meeting the needs of individuals and bringing together this alignment. One of the things I've discovered over the years, that if you want a real partnership and you want to tell if it's really successful, is whether or not your partners are putting dollars into to what you're doing. If they're not, then maybe you're not really engaging them in a way that they feel is meeting their needs. We're one of the things that we're going to be talking about are expectations of that, and as we look at particularly areas where we know we need to grow, you'll notice some of these lists, many of them are tied back to particular economic sectors and groups and others. I've sat down with some of those sectors already who say, boy, we need your help, and I'll say, are you engaged? Oh yeah. We talked to some folks about it, but when you start getting to the level of engagement that they really need, we've never gotten there. Let me kind of explain what we mean with that, because what I find is historically we've asked them, what kind of readings do you require? What are the math skills that you require? What equipment should we have in the program, in the lab? And what are your thoughts on the curriculum? Are our course titles the right ones, basically? And we move on. And I had a hard lesson in that a few years ago. I was meeting with an industry sector who basically hadn't been supportive of us there. And we'd spent 2 hours, and we talked about all those things. And I'm asking them, what are you looking for? And we went back and forth. And so I'm walking out with the CEO of a company. I said, you think we can come back and partner? He said, I enjoyed the conversation. He said, but truth of that matter is, you never asked the right question, so I don't know that we're ever going to be able to really work together. I said, well, what do you mean? We talked about curriculum, we talked about skills, we talked about some of the abilities. He said, let me ask you a couple of questions. As a company, do we produce leading edge, high-tech products for which we can charge a premium in the marketplace, or are we the low-cost provider trying to compete on volume and low cost? Because if you don't understand that, how can you work with us? So I don't know. He said, tell me about how we look at employees. Do we hire them for life, basically, and invest in their skill development over their career, or do we cycle them in and out depending on need? I don't know. He asked me, he said, what about our concept of service? Do we see that as a core business for which we hold close in-house, or do we outsource that and maybe even to another country where they're providing that? Important, but not a core business. You really never got down to who we are, and frankly, we wouldn't bring a vendor in to supply meet our needs that didn't understand that. Why would we bring someone in to work with our employees if you didn't understand what we needed? And why would we invest in your program if you really don't get what our challenges are and what our needs? So it becomes down to the partnership is about engagement at the college level. We can't do it at the district. Scholarships are important. Don't get me wrong, but what's really more important, that our programs become more and more attuned and aligned to what's there. And if we can get companies and organizations to invest, we know then that we're on the right track, because they'll pull the money back. And they've done it before in the district when we got out of line with what their needs are. And that's why we have to have a lot more of that, not because we need the money, but because we need the partnerships as much or more than we need the dollars. I think we're about out of time, and I appreciate the opportunity today. I may have one more question that we do. So,
there's a lot of talk over the last 20 years of considering educational success primarily in terms of jobs. In fact, that's in part what you also did. I came from a single-parent Hispanic mom. I didn't go to college to get a PhD in political economics because of a job. My brother didn't get a PhD in nuclear physics because of an idea of a job. My sister, who's a well-renowned artist, did not go to college to get a job. Two of my closest friends who have the same background did not go to college. one who received the MacArthur Genius Foundation Award because of a job. Jobs are an issue and an incentive, but it's not really what educational success can solely be defined as. One of the problems that the legislature is currently doing, and Tennessee, which ranks, by the way, in the lower 200 of successful colleges in the United States, is defining success in terms of success points which can be quantitatively measured as opposed to qualitatively measured, and seeing that educational success is something more or in addition to actually achieving a job. Do you have any thoughts along that area?
Well, you know, it gets about what we were talking about really earlier. The need for an educated population is going to be there and real. However, what we had basically set up was a system that was designed to kind of weed out people from that process, to only a few. And it was really designed on the European model to some degree, and others originally to make that happen. What has changed in our society is the fact that you can't get the job without the education. I was in a meeting that was pulled together a couple of years ago by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and they were trying to get at this very issue. What do we need to do? And so they were looking at an overall measure. It was called their metric study, I believe was what was there. So they invited 4 from almost every sector. There were 4 of us from community colleges. There were 4 from the Research One flagship universities. There were 4 from for-profit. There were 4 from regional state, and there were 4 from private liberal arts colleges at the group. And this issue was a big part of the conversation. And a person from Penn State at some point said, well, because it was going around and we were talking about jobs, workforce, and it was there. And finally got to Penn State, and the guy from Penn State said, we don't do workforce. To which somebody piped up, then why don't you put that on your catalog cover? Because the reality is every student going there wants a job when they get through. So the fact that we're educating at a broader level is important, but we can't also lose sight at the end of the day. I'm in the workforce, you're in the workforce, and we all need to be a part of that. So it's making sure that we have both an educated population, but also the ability for people to live in a manner in which they want to support themselves and their family. One more. Oh, thanks. Yeah. Go ahead. One more. And certainly taking students from where they are and helping them gain the skills in order to be successful is very important. I think there are a couple of things going on right now. That kind of gets, one of them is our overall, and forgive me for using this term, but business model based on the way we're funded, has really, in a large extent, driven the model that we've always used in developmental studies to some degree. We've known for a long time that if with some restructuring that we could actually even do a better job, but frankly the costs go up as we get more engaged with students understanding exactly where their weaknesses are, and then being a lot more prescriptive in terms of how we work with them, providing more individual support, drives up our costs in the process. I don't think we're going to have an option. I think we've got to really kind of fix that disconnect. Secondly, on it, our good friends at Teachers College at Columbia University, the Community College Research Center, Tom Bailey and his folks, I'm sure you've read the study related to that, when they really took a good look at it, that about half the people that test into developmental education would have been successful without it. The trouble is we couldn't tell which ones they were. And so that's really kind of influenced a lot of the thinking and a lot of the models. We're all 46% district-wide in developmental education, and we're way up in our entry-level English and mathematics courses. I think that we're going to have to be really paying attention to that. We can't assume that that's the end of the conversation. We've got to continue to look at what's really happening to students and making sure that we're meeting their needs. Thank you very much. It's great to be here. Thanks, Gary.
Thank you for your insightful questions, and we are so appreciative of Dr. May spending his morning with us this morning, and we will continue for about the next 30 minutes in the foyer, and Dr. May will join us, so you will have the opportunity to greet him individually, and we'll have refreshments. Thank you so much, and we're adjourned.